It was just another ordinary morning, or so everyone thought. But for one man sitting alone on a cold bench outside a small hospital in Ohio, that morning would become something he could never forget for the rest of his life. He didn't know it yet, but a single moment of kindness he ignored years ago was about to come back, not as a chance, but as a regret that would break him in ways he never expected. Before we begin, if you believe in the power of kindness and real-life emotional stories like this, take a second to support the channel. Subscribe to Kindness Story Hub, like this video, and comment where you're watching from. Your support helps spread stories that truly matter in today's world. Now, let's begin. The man's name was Daniel Carter. He was 42, a businessman from Chicago who had built everything in life with logic, ambition, and control. People respected him for his success, but very few ever felt warmth from him. He believed kindness was something optional, something nice, but not necessary in a harsh world. Years ago, Daniel had a younger sister named Emily. She was the opposite of him, soft-spoken, kind-hearted, and always ready to help others even when she had nothing herself. They grew up together in a small town, raised by a single mother who worked 2 jobs. There was one memory Emily never forgot. One winter evening, when Daniel was still in college and already chasing success, she asked him for help. Their neighbor, an elderly woman named Mrs. Harris, was sick and alone. Emily wanted Daniel to help take her to the hospital. But Daniel refused. "I don't have time for every problem in this neighborhood," he had said coldly. "People need to handle their own lives." Emily went alone that night. She walked through the freezing snow to help Mrs. Harris. Daniel never went. Mrs. Harris survived, but barely. And Emily never stopped being kind to others, even after that night. Daniel, on the other hand, became even more focused on success and money. He forgot the small things. He called kindness an option, something weak people depended on. Years passed. Emily moved to another state to work as a nurse. Daniel became a successful businessman. They rarely spoke. Then came that morning in Ohio. Daniel had flown there for a business deal. Everything went wrong, his client canceled, his deal collapsed, and his phone stopped working due to battery issues. Frustrated, he sat outside a hospital, waiting for his driver who was delayed in traffic. That's when he saw her. A nurse walking out of the hospital, tired, holding a clipboard. She looked familiar. Something about her face froze him. It was Emily. But she didn't notice him at first. She looked older, more tired, but her eyes still carried that same kindness he remembered from childhood. She was helping a young boy in a wheelchair, speaking softly, adjusting his blanket, smiling even though she looked exhausted. Daniel stood up slowly. "Emily," he called out. She turned. For a moment, everything stopped. "Daniel," she said, surprised but not angry. "Just, come." They stood there silently for a few seconds. Years of distance between them filled that small space. Finally, Daniel spoke. "I didn't know you worked here." "I didn't know you were in Ohio," she replied gently. There was no bitterness in her voice. That made him uncomfortable. They sat on the hospital steps and talked. Or rather, Emily talked, and Daniel listened. She told him about her work, about patients she cared for, about nights she stayed awake just to hold a stranger's hand so they wouldn't feel alone. Daniel shook his head slightly. "You still do all this for people?" She smiled softly. Someone has to. That simple sentence hit him harder than any business failure ever had. Then Daniel asked something he didn't expect himself to ask. "Do you remember Mrs. Harris?" Emily nodded. "Of course I do." Daniel looked down. "I should have helped you that night." Emily stayed quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I know." That was all. No anger. No blame. Just acceptance. But that's when Daniel felt something strange in his chest. Not guilt exactly, something deeper. A realization. He had spent his entire life treating kindness like an option. Something extra. Something unnecessary. But here was his sister, living proof that kindness wasn't optional, it was life itself. Emily stood up when her shift was called again. Before walking away, she looked back at him. "You know, Daniel, people don't remember what you achieve. They remember how you made them feel." Then she left. Those words stayed. That evening, Daniel didn't go back to his hotel right away. He stayed outside the hospital, watching people come and go. Nurses helping patients. Families holding hands. Strangers comforting strangers. For the first time in his life, he noticed something he had always ignored. Kindness wasn't small. It was everywhere. And he had been blind to it. Days passed after that meeting, but Daniel couldn't return to his old mindset. He found himself questioning everything. His deals, his priorities, his empty achievements. One night, he received a call. Emily had been in an accident while driving home after a long shift. She was in critical condition. Daniel rushed to the hospital without thinking. For the first time, he didn't care about meetings, contracts, or money. He just ran. When he reached the hospital, he saw doctors fighting to save her life. Hours passed. Daniel sat outside the ICU, the same place where everything had started days ago. But now it felt different. He wasn't the powerful businessman anymore. He was just a man hoping for a second chance. A nurse finally came out. "She's stable," she said. "She asked for you." Daniel rushed inside. Emily looked weak, but she was awake. When she saw him, she smiled faintly. "You came." Daniel's voice cracked. "Of course I came." There was a long silence. Then Emily whispered, "Don't wait until it's too late to care about people, Daniel. I learned kindness from life, you still have time to learn it from choice." Those words broke him. He held her hand tightly, something he had never done before in his life. Not even as a child. "I was wrong," he said quietly. "I thought kindness was just an option." Emily squeezed his hand. "It's never an option. It's what makes us human." Emily recovered slowly over the next weeks. Daniel stayed in Ohio longer than he had ever stayed anywhere without business reasons. He started visiting patients with her. Helping families. Listening to stories he would have once ignored. Something inside him changed. People began noticing it. The once cold businessman was now someone who stayed after meetings to help staff, someone who donated without asking for recognition, someone who finally understood what he had been missing all along. Years of success had given him wealth. But this moment gave him something else, meaning. One evening, Daniel and Emily stood outside the hospital again, just like the day they reunited. Daniel looked at her and said, you know what's strange? I spent my whole life thinking kindness was just an option I didn't need. Emily smiled. And now? He looked around, the hospital, the people, the sunset. Now I realize it was the only thing that mattered. Kindness is never wasted. It never disappears. It always finds its way back, sometimes as a blessing, and sometimes as a regret that teaches us too late. But if we're lucky enough to realize it in time, it can change everything. So today, choose kindness. Not because you have to, but because it might be the one thing that turns someone's life, and your own, into something meaningful. And maybe, just maybe, you'll never have to call it regret. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to Kindness Story Hub, like the video, and share it with someone who needs a reminder that kindness still matters. Because in the end, kindness is never just an option.